So hello, good morning and welcome to another Monday Mystery Meeting. I think this is number 14, if my memory serves me correctly. And here we are, we've got Sue Scott, who is brilliantly joining us for today's Monday Mystery Meeting. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to Sue today about things. So Sue, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Good. So Sue, obviously we get people from Riverside watching this, but we also get people who aren't from Riverside watching this as well. So some people might not know you. So why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm Sue. I'm married to John, who is the church treasurer. I have 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren and a 4th due in January, which we're very excited about. I've lived in Bewdley for 25 years and we've been part of Riverside for 15 of those. I've been a Christian since I was 14, but I think my Christian story goes back to before I was born, because my great-grandparents were very devout Christians. My grandma was a woman of prayer. Yeah. And actually, there's a little story. I'll tell you. Would you like to hear a little story?
I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was born, I was very, very small. I was a wee lass of 4 pounds.
Wow.
And so obviously we're going back 57 years here. So 4 pounds was not a really viable weight for a baby in those days. Wow. So my dad was away at sea because he was in the Navy, and the hospital staff said to my mum, you need to get a vicar in to baptise this baby because she won't be going home with you. And so this is what happened in hospital. I was christened in hospital, and my mum got a message to my dad, who was on board a ship, and my dad had no Christian background whatsoever, nothing in the family, nothing at all, never been to church, nothing. And his testimony at his own baptism was that he, in a big bunk room with lots of other sailors, he knelt by his hammock and prayed to a God he didn't even know was there to save his baby. Roll on 14 years, this baby becomes a Christian, the first one to be a born-again Christian in her little nuclear family, followed on the heels by her dad, who saw the change in this very rebellious Christian. So we always joked that he got more than he bargained for when he prayed that prayer in the bottom of a ship out at sea somewhere.
That's incredible. So literally ordained from birth, literally.
Well, it's funny actually, because obviously I've got Psalm 139 open in front of me, and you will well know that it says in there that I was seen before, I was knit together in my mother's womb, and all my days were ordained before I was even born.
Wow. Literally, you are living out of the promise of God. You are literally the fulfillment of that right now.
So that's God's hand was on my life at the very, very beginning, I feel.
That is amazing. And I love those. Sometimes we forget the power of just those little stories, but just of people reaching out in prayer, and in times of pandemic like this, it's very interesting how many people that weren't engaging in prayer or open to prayer.
Yeah.
Just are.
And I think, God hears all our prayers. My dad wasn't a Christian. He had no faith. He didn't even know God was there, but he prayed, and God answered.
And that is the thing. Sometimes it's very easy to go, well, prayer's a Christian thing. Actually, prayer is just us communicating with God.
Thing, isn't it?
And anybody reaching out to God is prayer, isn't it?
Yeah.
And He is listening. He is our loving Father. We mustn't forget that.
Yeah.
See, that's just blown me away. That's blown me away, and we haven't even really got into it, Sue. That's it. Now I'm done.
I'll go then. Bye.
But yeah, so obviously we've been in lockdown. This is 4 months and 2 weeks into lockdown now, which is just crazy talk. What happened for you? Did anything change when the country went into pandemic and lockdown? What did it look like for you?
Well, I work in a business that I own half of. Yeah. So we do flooring in commercial places, so hotels and this kind of thing. And we were, as the lockdown started, we were working on 2 big sites in Birmingham, and so both those sites closed. And so our biggest shift initially was what to do with our staff, because this was obviously completely uncharted. It was quite stressful, really. We didn't know what to do with them. Obviously, the furlough scheme helped massively, but we were worried about, whether we should have people working at home, whether we should furlough them, So that was all quite difficult to navigate through. So my biggest change at that point was the fact that I was working at home. I'd never worked at home before. It was like really strange to be kind of going downstairs in my dressing gown and putting on my computer. But actually, in some ways, it was also quite nice because it just felt so, although there was pressure in the decision making and just making sure, trying to do the right thing and navigating the company through the right thing.
Yeah.
It was like a really nicely unpressured way to work. Kind of the dog would come in and sit by my chair and have a little cuddle, and so.
Have you found you could do a lot more of your work at home than you thought that you could?
Well, I obviously there was a bit of technology that was needed, so that was put in place just before the lockdown, actually, when people were being advised to self-isolate and this kind of thing. So we'd already started putting the bare bones of it in place. So I had the technology. What I didn't have was all my paperwork. So I had to keep nipping over to the office at odd times when it was all locked up and just bringing files and things home. So that was just once I had all my papers around me, I could work quite successfully.
Do you think coming out of lockdown, as lockdown eases, and let's pray obviously that we can go back to whatever normal life looked like before, do you think you could see yourself working from home more than maybe you did previously?
I think I would on occasions. I have gone back to the office now. The office is not as populated as it was, and I don't expect it will ever be again as populated, because now we've all got the opportunity to work at home. The contracts managers are sometimes working at home and sometimes out on site, and then sometimes in the office, where it was always office or site before. So
Do you think that will make things easier in people's emotional or mental health, or will that make it more difficult as a worker?
I think it's really been helpful. We've got one guy who's got school-aged children, not tiny children, but sort of, I think, 12 and 15, something like that. So this has helped him massively through the summer holidays, because he kind of engineers what days he's working at home to help just be there if they need him.
Wow.
We've got another guy who lives quite a long way away. He lives kind of over the other side of Cannock Chase. So it's a trawl for him to get over to the office. And really, we don't need him to get over to the office. He can do a lot of what he does from home. He's got his computer, he's doing tenders and this kind of thing. So he can go to his sites and he can do his tenders, and he can pop in when he needs to pop in.
Wow. So do you think yourself and other business leaders, do you think there'll be a flexibility to working that maybe wasn't there before?
I hope so, because I hope that if people can embrace doing a combination of working at home and working in a business premises, I think it'll have a good impact, not only on their own mental health, because you're not spending ages in traffic jams and this kind of thing, but I think it will help the environment. It'll help pollution.
Definitely. And I mean, I was reflecting on it because I was reading an article about, especially in cities, it doesn't really affect us as much in Bewdley, but how many people actually, their working day doesn't start at 9 o'clock, but their working day starts at 8 o'clock as they're sitting on public transport. But because they're on public transport, they're on their emails for work actually at 8 o'clock, not at 9 o'clock. So their working day is an hour longer at the start, and sometimes they're doing work on public transport on the way home. So they weren't working 9 hours a day. In some cases, it was 11, because they were just working because it's all so available. And I think
I suppose that's big for commuters on trains and things, isn't it?
And I quite like the idea that you can be at home, do your work, and clock off and have some time with the family, knowing that you can come back. It creates that nice break, doesn't it?
Yes. I thought that when I was watching Scott and Claire's interview a couple of weeks ago, that Scott was saying how nice it was just to go down and see the family at lunchtime, and whereas you don't get that opportunity if you're in an office, do you?
No, and if you're having a bad day in an office, you're stuck there. Whereas if you're having a bad day at home, you can actually just go, I'm going to leave this room, and you're in your comfort surroundings to help you get out of that place. So what has your experience? Some people have had great experiences in lockdown. Some people have really enjoyed the space and what's happened. Some people have really struggled through it and been really challenged. And some people, it's been both. What's your experience of lockdown been like?
I think I've enjoyed the reduction in just the busyness. I'm a very sort of person, always tries to squeeze too much in my day. I'm a list person, always got things to do, places to go. So I've enjoyed the reduction in that. I've really enjoyed when the lockdown was, at its height, and we were only allowed to go out for essential shopping and daily exercise.
Yeah.
You know, it was so fantastic to go for long walks, and of course the weather was lovely. I've discovered a whole host of walks that are on my doorstep that I knew a bit of them, but you know, I was unaware of how much there was really so close.
Yeah.
And of course there was no traffic on Bewdley bypass, which meant you could cross Bewdley bypass and get to the walks on the other side of the bypass. You could pop up halfway along the bypass and just cross over, which was great to find all that. I don't think I'll attempt it now. I've been out this morning and it's so different just noticing now walking along those fields in the height of the lockdown. The noise of the bird song was one thing that I really took notice of. It was like so loud, and that must still be there, but I can't hear it so much now because all I can hear is the background traffic from the road.
I mean, I live off the bypass.
Yeah.
Actually, at the height of lockdown, it was bird song. I couldn't sleep because the bird song would wake me up. Whereas now I'm just being woken up by motorbikes.
Traffic. And it missed all those birds. You know, I had to kind of really concentrate this morning to try and listen for the birds. But so there's almost a bit of mindfulness needed there, that you think, right, I'm going to focus on the nature and on the birds and not on the traffic. Yeah. So I find that kind of really sort of just good for the soul, isn't it, really, being out in the countryside, and just makes you have a sense of well-being. So yeah, I struggled not seeing the family, but they'd come and they wouldn't let us go shopping because John and I are both diabetics. I think they were in panic mode for us and wouldn't let us go do our own food shopping. So they used to come and deliver food, and we've got a porch on the front of our house. It's kind of like a glass enclosure, and they'd drop the food in, and they'd stand one side of the porch and we'd be inside the porch, have a chat. So that was a bit weird, but
wow. I mean, you talked about how you've liked not being as busy. Do you see it being something that you can keep up as we come out of lockdown? Do you think that change of pace is something that, you know, do you think you'll be able to keep up, or do you think you'll be dragged back?
No, I think I kind of, you know, already I've made changes that I think I'll maintain. So I've gone back to some hobbies that I haven't done I used to be an avid sewer. I used to make all sorts of things. I used to make all my own clothes when I was in my early 20s. I made wedding dresses. I made all sorts of things. And my sewing machine hasn't seen the light of day for quite a while. But then I started sewing again. So that's been quite fun. And I've been doing a lot more cooking and baking and stuff that I used to do. But you just kind of...
The goal is almost to keep those hobbies up again.
Been in the garden a lot. We've grown some vegetables.
Okay. So you really have embraced that time. That's good to know, because some people, obviously, I've talked to some people, what have you done lockdown? And they've gone, I've enjoyed Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a TV person anyway. I'm kind of a bit of a reluctant telly watcher.
And to know that you've been proactively using your time, I suppose because you're a doer as well, that will help you in moving through that. But I think you're right about trying to keep those rhythms up now. And that'll be the challenge, isn't it? Not to be dragged back into the business.
Yeah.
So have you seen God like break through in lockdown through the pandemic? Where have you been seeing God moving over the last 4 months?
Yeah, I think I'm the sort of person that kind of takes the word breakthrough and I look for something massive. So I haven't seen anything massive, but I think seeing God moving is something that I can more identify with. So, and I think it's just a matter of seeing the in-breaking of the kingdom more into our lives and into our communities, rather than some sort of massive thing that you can point to. So one good thing that we've had going is we have a neighbour 3 doors up who is one of the local GPs, and he set about creating a WhatsApp group for our road. And everybody embraced this. It was really good. So we're all now talking on WhatsApp. We've got to know neighbours that I didn't even know who lived, the face of who lived in the house, never mind their names. Wow. So I've tracked, as everybody joined, I made a little list of all the house numbers and all the names. So I've been trying to learn everyone's name, which is quite a challenge when you don't see some people very often.
But this group with your neighbours, you know, if you take photographs of them on the street and then play a little game. Oh, they're just pulling down.
Well, the WhatsApp group's been really active, so people have been shopping for each other. We have quite a lot of older people on our road that were completely not going out. Everybody came out to clap on the Thursday nights. On Easter Sunday, the vicar lives on our road, the vicar of St Anne's. So, and her and I are friendly, so we decided between us that we'd join the big sing thing that somebody had decided to put out on Facebook, which was basically a gathering in the street sing. I think it was "Thine Be the Glory," I think we sang. So we also have somebody from St Anne's up the road, which I didn't realise he lived there, but he's well known in Bewdley because he's got an amazing singing voice. So he led from the corner of the road, "Thine Be the Glory" at 10 o'clock on Easter Sunday morning. So that was really good. It was, and that kind of feeling of community is continuing, and people are sharing their homegrown vegetables and this kind of thing still. So
that's brilliant. And they are kingdom of God moments, aren't they? They are kingdom moments coming into our life, and they're becoming normal, which I love that. At the time you go, that's a lovely surprise, but here we are 4 months on, and it's continued, it's become normal, and it's nice to see those God community moments just being alive.
Yeah, and of course, well, we've all said that when the lockdown is completely over, we will have a street party up here, which will be lovely to meet everyone. We had a VE Day party. We all sat at the end of our drives with our cups of tea and our scones, and people walked up and down the middle of the road because there was no traffic, so we could do that.
That is lovely, and as you say, it's not massive breakthrough. It's God shining his light into the reality of people's lives, and there being the goodness of God literally just cropping up in communities. Amazing. Yeah.
On the other hand, I have struggled with just this kind of, meeting in a technological way. I'm not a big techie person, as my family will tell you. I meet with a group of ladies that I usually row with on Zoom once a week, and sometimes I just sit there and say nothing because I just find it so overwhelming, all this conversation coming from different places. So I do find some of those technical things kind of a bit of a challenge.
Well, I do. I mean, I think I much prefer doing it in person, and it's a Zoom like this where there's 2 of us.
That's easier, isn't it?
But when you've got like 6 or 8 people on the screen, and who's talking first, because you can't talk at the same time, natural buzz of a conversation. Whereas if you're in your living room, tantrums are away, and it doesn't, you don't have this green box appear around who's talking and cutting each other off, and you lose some of that flow. It's a different dynamic of talking.
So I found some connecting with that sort of a bit challenging, really. But then on the other side, we've had a WhatsApp group from our life group, and that's been really good, because what has happened is, rather than when you meet sort of once every couple of weeks and everybody says, has anybody got anything to pray for, and it kind of goes around the room and people are going, oh, what can I think of? As things arise, people just say on the WhatsApp group, oh, this has happened, can you pray for this? And we all say, oh yes, we'll pray, and so that's been a lot more spontaneous and natural, and it's felt like the group has become more cohesive and supportive.
And I do love that. That's what I do like about WhatsApp groups. It's that instant group community that's just there. And I think of all the things we've done at Riverside, people who have set up, or life groups who have set up their WhatsApp groups, I'd say that's been probably of the biggest benefits of people, because as you say, it's that I'm low now, and you can reach out and have a group of people, and those that are available to see it can respond to it. And it's so great, because relationship is about reaching out and having someone reply, not waiting a couple of weeks for a prayer. Didn't happen a couple of weeks ago.
So that's really good. But obviously I recognise too that the online church has given a massive opportunity for people who don't normally access church. And I was really encouraged actually at one point, because my son Elliot, who isn't part of the church, but I would say has a good Christian understanding, he sent me the link to the Blessing song. I hadn't seen it before. I was thinking, oh, I'm really pleased that Elliot sent me that. And then on the back of that, the same week, I think it was Tear Fund and one of the national newspapers reported on the fact that there'd been this massive upsurge in people Googling prayer and people accessing online Christian services. So there's always an upside, isn't there, to the
there is. And actually I find it's not just with people that weren't coming to church, but I've also found it's people who have been on the edges of church, who have struggled to engage with the live gathering for a variety of reasons, have found themselves on the edge of church. And suddenly I've had lots of emails from people saying, the first time in years I've been able to actually access church properly with my family. And these are wow, I've just thought because you were attending on a Sunday, you were
Yeah,
actually plugged in, but it shows just because you could come into a building on a Sunday doesn't mean you're actually able to
yeah,
access what's going on. I've been really encouraged that not
yeah,
just those that haven't known church before, but say those that have felt a little squeezed out by church have
yeah,
actually found a way to engage with us again. It's great.
yeah. It's really positive. So yeah,
And that's, I always say, it's not a replacement, but it's certainly here to stay. It'll be, as we move forward, it'll be a part of what we do. And the
yeah.
challenge for me is figuring out how, when we regather, do you do both? I will figure that out.
This has just been one series of challenges for you, hasn't it? Really?
Honestly, yeah. You look at a hurdle race of 100 meters and you go, wow, they've got 8 hurdles. You get 8 hurdles a day in this.
Yes.
At the moment, honestly, it feels like the longest hurdle race I've ever done in my life. Keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really, I wanted to just 2 last questions to close on. What do you want us to be praying for? What do you think the church as a whole should be praying for? And what advice can you give us? What if you could ask the church to do anything right now? What would it be?
I think praying. I think a good thing for us all to pray would be that this hunger and seeking God that was evident in the very strictest bit of the lockdown, with people accessing all these different resources, that it won't fizzle out as normality returns, but there'd be a continuation of this, and that it won't be squeezed by when we get back to our busy routines.
Yeah.
And there'd be a real sort of atmosphere of seeking God throughout all the denominations. I felt really, in fact, often as I've walked and I've looked down from the fields, because where we walk, we're at the top of the hill, so I can look down over Bewdley, and I just felt as I've been walking, so a real urge to pray for the churches in Bewdley, and especially St Anne's, but I guess I've got a connection with St Anne's because I know Megan, and that God would really move on all the churches in Bewdley, that it will be a move of God, not in Elim, but in Bewdley, across the denominations and across the
we've got to be praying for the wider church. We are one expression of faith. We are not the expression of faith. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in how we do it is the best way. And it's not. It's a different way than the other expressions, and different people need to connect with God in different ways. So we should be praying for all expressions of church to be growing, because there's something for everybody.
Yeah. So I know we're all familiar, aren't we, with the verse in Chronicles, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then I'll turn and heal their land. And that's what we need, isn't it, really? We all need to be seeking God. I just kind of want to, for me, I want to seek God more, if you see what I mean. I want an increased desire to seek him more, because once we seek him, we find him, don't we?
Yeah, and the more we seek him, the more we put ourselves out, and the more we invest in that, the more God just does stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
But let's pray for that.
The only coming out of that is, early on in the lockdown, I saw a Facebook post that really resonated with me, and it said, in the rush to return to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. And that's what you touched on earlier, wasn't it, really? How am I going to maintain some of this rhythm? And I think the situation has given us all an opportunity to re-examine our priorities and our lifestyles and how much we consume and our impact on the environment. So, I think as restrictions ease, I think that's something we can all be mindful of, really.
Definitely, and I think that's
be intentional about what's worth rushing back to.
And I think that's amazing practical advice, because we should be stopping and saying, what does my life look like? What else can I do? Where else can I be stopping things? What is a priority in my life? And we should be practically doing that. We should be evaluating our lives and saying, what's good for me? Because actually, I think a lot of us fall into behaviours which really aren't good for us, and we have to be aware of those, don't we?
It's just been a good opportunity, hasn't it, to really examine ourselves and look at our default behaviours and patterns of being and patterns of doing. And
I'm almost terrified for me when I come out of lockdown, because actually, I thought lots of people were challenging me on my unhealthy that I was working before lockdown. And if anything, I've just gone up a level. So, honestly, so when we come out of lockdown, people, you won't see me. I'm going home.
You'll be in your own private lockdown, sort of some months after everybody else.
Definitely. Everyone's had one for 4 months. So once we come out, I'm having my own for 4 months just to catch up. But Sue, thank you so much just for sharing so much about yourself and challenging us on our rhythms of life, because actually what I'm finding, and when I'm speaking to people, is now lockdown is easing. Lots of people were saying we want to reassess the rhythms of our life, but actually people are finding themselves being pulled back into that old way of living, because if we don't get intentional with it, you can just sleepwalk back into it. And I think this is a real timely challenge for everyone watching, that don't just slip back into that. Let's dig into God. Let's pray for revival in our churches and a real hunger for God. But let's also reassess and reevaluate our rhythms. I think that's a great challenge and piece of advice for us. So thank you. But yeah, so thank you for sharing with us, Sue. I hope you have an amazing week doing what you do. And actually, I want to ask everyone out there, if you need any wedding dresses,
No, I don't sew that much anymore.
quick, stop.
No, I'm not making wedding dresses. Too much stress. That goes against my new rhythm of
You all heard that, people. No wedding dresses. I apologise. But no, Sue, have a great week. Look after yourself. And everyone watching, we'll see you all soon. So, bye.
Bye now. Bye.